All right, and we are live. Hi,
Live.
YouTube. Hi, internet.
Hello.
I do that.
Okay, so
Howdy.
I'm immediately taking over from Andrew. He's clearly had too much to drink already. Look, see, guilty party right there. Can't even say internet correctly. You cannot be trusted with the reins of power. I
It's
hereby
dragon
cease
smoke
command.
again. It's dragon smoke again. Yeah. Hangouts is going away August 1st. So this will be the last Hangouts we get to
Oh,
do
really?
on August
Wait,
1st.
What?
Be praised.
Well, then how am I going to do these and the fucking Selectives Lorecast?
I don't know. I'll have to talk to Chris and be like, hey, what are we going to do? I don't know.
Oh,
Skype or something.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Like, I haven't used Skype in so long.
No, we'll have to use Discord.
I mean, we could make it be just audio, which I guess is fine.
Twitch.
See, but Twitch doesn't have like a group. You know.
Yeah, you can do that. I've seen people
Can
do podcast shows on Twitch. Yeah, you can
I don't
have
know.
several people.
I don't have a Twitch.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it. I'd love to learn.
That's the future. All right. Well, you know what? I'll talk to some of my streamer buddies who are
Future
involved in
is
podcasts
Chrome.
and say,
Yeah.
hey.
Well, I'm sure Rotten Deadeye has that fucking locked in. So let's go ahead and get into the lore. This is the Casual Lorecast 33. Casual Lore Chat. Excuse me. Alcohol again. Casual Lore Chat 33. That's a fun number, 33, for reasons. Look it up. I promise it'll be cool.
It's an honor to be here.
So as usual, I'm the White Guar hosting. Yeah. So we wanted to talk about. Daniel had asked earlier, how do you kill a god? I had said something about how, I'm a god. How can you kill a god? What a grand and intoxicating. And so we went, how do you kill a god? So let's talk about that real quick. Who's got an idea? Who wants to open up discussion?
I have lots of ideas, but I want to see what other people's are, and then I'll just keep the ones that are not mentioned.
You can always transmute a god, assuming a god is an Aedra. I feel like you can turn an Aedra into a Daedra. Or at least it should be possible. Just like Talos can become an Aedra, you can also revert and subtract an Aedra.
And we have to kind of define what kill means too. Like zero summing.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. Go ahead.
About that, can you convince a god to try to achieve CHIM and zero sum?
I would say no, because again, okay, so the thing about Elder Scrolls is that it borrows very heavily in a lot of ways from the mythos of Lord of the Rings, and how each god has a place, they have a purpose that's maintaining the system. And so they may know the secrets of the system, and they may know that it's possible to escape the system, but they can't because the system fails if they try, which is why Lorcan is super important, because that's his purpose in the system, is to make it so that people, mortals, have the chance to do so. A way of actually killing gods, though, tends to involve dicks.
What?
Yeah, so, okay, hear me out.
I'm listening.
In the trial of Vivek, he basically kills Azura by assembling a pile of bones and says it represents Muwatra, his spear, which really represents his dick, if you read his own insinuation. So basically, he mouth rapes Azura and robs her of her divinity and of her realm, so that the Prince of Dusk and Dawn is no more. And you also have the destruction of gods with relation to... Shit, I had it and then I lost it. It has to do with how Lorcan died. More than hands, that's it. Yes. Okay, so... 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 More than hands, that's it. I forget which text mentions it, but when Trinimac rips out Lorcan's heart, effectively air quotations killing him, it said that he did so with more than hands, which is implied to be, or in some people, such as myself, believe that that's an implication of using a tower, especially adamantine tower,
which is also phallic shaped.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
And then you also
if the
have
phallic
fact,
was the prime thing, they wouldn't have built tower. They wouldn't have had to. The tower is something different.
like, okay, the towers represent something different, but I'm just trying to point out that a lot of this does have to deal with phallic imagery and mythos and relation. I mean, another good example, like tangentially related example of this, is Molag Bal being the Prince of Rape, and how he can change things, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. And other gods like, God, who was it? There's a Yokudan god, or no, maybe it was a celestial who was killed by like a dude basically shouting obscenities at it. I can't remember. I'll see if I can find that.
Yeah,
But,
if you can, as you're my point guy for Yokudan stuff. So if you don't know,
which is a shame because I don't know everything because I don't have ESO, which God, that bothers me every day.
Gotta get on that train, son.
Yeah, I know. Another way to kill gods, as we've seen, or at least has been talked about, is using Sunder and Keening to sever their connection to their source of power or their sphere, right? So when Vivek trapped Azura, he separated her from the sphere. When you, the Nerevarine, free the heart of Lorcan, you separate Dagothr and the Tribunal from their source of power, rendering them not as powerful gods and immortal gods anymore.
Can I stop you there?
Sure.
At the same time, though, by using Sunder and Keening on the heart of Lorcan, it doesn't dissever Lorcan from the world, right? Because
no, you free the heart of Lorcan because he's trapped under Red Mountain.
Yeah. So, but so if we use Sunder and Keening on a source of power, because I mean, could we argue that the heart of Lorcan is also Lorcan's source of power? I mean, it is his heart, and that has so many symbolistic connotations there. Yeah, pumps
Ebony
pumps
is the blood.
and
I will give that a maybe, and it's only a maybe because some would also say that Tamriel is Lorcan's source of power because they believe it's his Daedric plane.
Okay.
I mean, but they talk about the heart being the heart of Tamriel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the heart of the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So the idea that Keening and Sunder can be used to separate parse out the divinity from a deity. I mean, could Lorcan be the exception? I don't know. I
think that again goes back to my earliest point about how all gods have a kind of place. So Lorcan's place is he had to, quote, die to become the dead god, to show men the way forward, and that his heart is now important to the dealings of the world. But you know, Lorcan's whole thing is succeed where I fail, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that to me is why I kind of feel like it still ties back to what I was saying at the very beginning. But again, people are welcome to disagree with that, or if there's evidence to the contrary, I'd happily listen to it.
Yeah. So something I want to point out, and that's, I mean, it's kind of going in a different direction from what you were saying, Felix. To kill a god, I mean, I think we really have to understand what gods are in the Elder Scrolls first. And I mean, different people are gonna have different ideas, but for my own understanding of the Elder Scrolls, I mean, I'm of the mind that the entirety of the Elder Scrolls, the Arbus, takes place within the mind of a sleeping godhead. I mean, this is
Right.
pretty standard stuff, right? But I'm also of the mind that the dream is just that. It's a simple dream. There's nothing unusual about it. And there's nothing unusual about the godhead. The godhead is just a normal person like you or me. And so that puts the speciality, the specialness from the godhead onto dreaming as a whole. We as conscious beings, right, when we dream, what universes appear and die in our minds every second? How do we know? Because we don't remember them for the most part, right? I mean, there are some dreams we go, oh, hey, that was fucking weird. You know, dinosaurs took over the earth and I could fend them off with hot pink paper. I don't, you know, I mean, that was a dream my mom had one time, actually. So with that in mind, we have the Arbus. It is a normal dream, which means everything within the dream is some aspect of the dreamer, right? So, for example,
thinking of the immunity system or something like that.
yeah. I mean, some people like Jordan Flores, King Joe, what is it, 67 or something on Reddit. He made a post on the Elder Scrolls lore group on Facebook one time that was fascinating. It took the 12 biological systems in the human body and applied them to the Arbus, and I thought it was awesome. It was really good stuff.
Yeah, I remember that.
Well,
Yeah,
I just had an
It
idea.
was like the endocrine system or something like that, right?
Yeah. Like the endocrine system, the nervous system, the musculatory system, all these things, and this, the limbic system, and they were attributed to specific etata. And I thought that
You just gave me an idea, Andrew. I was already thinking a way to kill a god would be to maybe take away the worship from him or her.
Which
Like,
I'm leading up to that.
yeah, I actually had a feeling because I was going to say if there was a new dream further on or in the past that had different gods, or like some Daedric princes were exempt, just because of whoever the dreamer became, they could just delete the very idea of them, and then they'd be dead. And
Okay,
Yes,
I have a
if
question.
Nocturnal chooses, she could just shroud it, and like it'd be invisible but still there. So you'd
I
have
have
to deal with that.
a question.
Yeah, Colby, go ahead.
It might be kind of stupid.
No such thing here.
Okay, so if you take the worship away, and by extension you take the power away from the god, then how come the gods were able to like create the world in the first place before they were worshipped?
That's a really good point.
Don't they lose part of their
Yeah.
godhead by creating?
That's a paradox.
That is, I'm going to write that down because I do want to revisit that. How could gods create the world in the first place without worship? Okay, so I'm gonna continue going down my rabbit hole here. So everything within the Arbus is a part of the dreamer, and because we're in a dream, we're pretty much stuck to the psychological. That's why a lot of folks like Michael Ziegler, Scourgicus on Tesla, he talks about Carl Jung a lot. It was basically the father of modern psychology. Him and Sigmund Freud were contemporaries, I believe. And so that means that all the what are you doing, Felix?
I'm fanning myself because it's hot and there's no fucking wind.
Okay, all right. I just heard the repetitive sound, and I had to ask. I'm gonna fucking come up there.
Do it. You'll be safer.
I would be. It would be nice. We could have a good time. So
your kid could have proper medical coverage.
yeah, but there's other stuff. Anyway, so the Atata in the Arbus are the biggest, I guess, block of psychological information that we can get, and that's emotion. So anger and happiness and all these different emotions that they tend to bleed into each other. And that's why a lot of the Atata overlap in their spheres. And so we take an emotion like anger, for example, and we metaphorize it. And oh well, what does anger do? What does anger look like? And we get something like, I would guess Molag Bal. I maybe Mehrunes Dagon. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I couldn't possibly take a single.
If it's anger, it's probably Malakath.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean that's perfectly valid. I have no idea.
When you were
Dagon. Yeah, I hear you.
When you were describing anger, like the first thing that I pictured was Mehrunes Dagon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, there's a few ways we can take this. It's real subjective because we don't even really understand emotion all that well, from a scientific perspective. We know that different chemicals will impact our moods and our emotions in certain ways. But how do we quantify emotion? It's really hard to do, and we can't do that with the technology and the science that we have. It's this weird kind of quasi realm of psychological theory that we've got. And I mean, for the most part, I mean, it's most of what we understand about psychology rings true, but we still can't put the numbers to it. You know what I mean? It's hard to really tack it down. So we've got the gods. They are the emotions. We've got the individual people who are ideologies, right? Certain ways of thinking about the world. That's ideology is skin. That's what separates cultures in the Elder Scrolls. We've got individual people. Those are the wayward thoughts. You can have a thought that just changes your entire paradigm, and that's where we get things like Talos from. Talos and Vivek and Cyrus the Restless, all these characters who are just monumental. And so when we talk about,
they're also a result of lorcanic shit.
Yeah. So
put that out there.
So then we got to wonder, well, what emotion is Lorcan then? Is it hope? I mean, I would almost attribute that to Mehrunes Dagon, but I don't know. Again, I mean, how do we really tell what emotions bleed into other emotions? So circling back to the main question, how do we kill a god? And it comes down to, well, how do we deal with emotion? How do we get rid of an emotion in ourselves and just kill it? It's gone. And the question, can we? I don't know. Can I make it so that I am never happy? I never smile again in my life ever? Is that a thing I can do? I don't know.
Of course you can do that.
Maybe. Drugs. Eventually we'll do that.
Okay. But I mean, there's no choice I can make that will make it so that I can never feel happiness again. Right? I eat my favorite flavor of ice cream. Well, there it is. The dopamine and serotonin in my brain that's going on. There's happiness right there. I may not telegraph it, but it's still there. I may be contented and happy in that sense. So I mean, how do we do that? Now we get people like Dagothur, Vivek, Omalaxia, Sothasil, Talos himself. Do they operate in the same fashion? Are they emotions? I mean, I would argue that Talos could be an emotion or becomes an emotion in the same way that a thought becomes an emotion, right?
Yeah, it's complicated.
I mean, and I go deep into layers of metaphor and to one thought has its it lives its own life in this world where emotions are gods and ideologies make different cultures in this kind of magitech sci fantasy world. But I mean, ultimately, I mean, if we look at it from that respect, then the answer I would say would ultimately be no. There's no way to properly kill a god. But then we get things like Numidium. And if you're unfamiliar with Dice Irae, which is the unfinished and unpublished. Is it a sequel to Coda? Felix, do you know?
Wait, I'm actually
I
unfamiliar with
have
that. What is
no
that?
idea. I think if anything,
Was it
it's more
called
like a
Dice Iron Ring?
prequel to Coda.
Okay. Yeah. So you may have noticed that in Coda, there is no mention of any of the Daedric princes. Being the fact that it's the Dunmer and the Khajiit who have survived post-landfall and live now on Master. Azura is the one overlap between those two cultures, right? Azura is huge, but there's no mention of her. There's nothing. So what we find out through interviews and conversations with Michael Kirkbride is that in Dice Irae, this unfinished possible prequel, maybe parallel, I'm not really sure, we find out that Numidium actually negated at least the good Daedra. Boethia, Mephala, and Azura. They're gone. They have been deleted. They're absent. And not absent in the Lorcon way. They are a 404 page not found. And so that's...
So there is a way.
That seems to be the case. If you take Michael Kirkbride seriously, which personally I do. If you don't, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But in his mode of thought, I would say that's how you kill a god. You use Numidium, you deny it. Because to my mind, that's what Numidium is. Denial.
So it's like the ultimate weapon of mass destruction in the Elder Scrolls on a metaphysical level too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Holy, that's pretty cool.
If it's on a metaphysical level, it's on that level on every plane.
And then we get to forgetting, which was something that you brought up, Johnny. You could just stop worshiping a god and forget about them. Which, I mean,
and if everyone forgets about them,
sure. I mean, we've got how many thousands of gods that exist just in human culture, right? No one worships Sekhmet anymore.
Well, you just said their name. That's a worship.
Yeah. I said the name.
Yeah,
that's an idea. I'm not necessarily.
That's a worship, man.
I'm not praising Sekhmet, right? Or so.
But you're acknowledging its existence.
I'm acknowledging a character.
Yeah,
right?
An idea, I guess.
Saying Diveth Fear isn't worship of Diveth Fear. Diveth Fear is a Dunmer sorcerer from Morrowind who's lived for a good long time. He was a Chimer at one point. I mean, he's fictional, and we acknowledge the fact that he's not real. And so, I mean, how many religions have existed in human history that are no longer worshipped or are outright forgotten? And I mean, speaking as someone who is a very, very open atheist, to me, that I've always seen that as, well, gods are myth. That's all they are. And out of all the thousands of gods that have existed, I mean, there's no reason to assume that the ones that people believe in now are any more real than those ones. And so that's where we bring the Thalmor in.
Oh yeah, they have a good idea.
Yeah. So the idea with the Thalmor, at least at the time of Skyrim, when they've, the White Gold Concordat has banned all worship of Talos within the Empire. And I believe a lot of this comes from Kirkbride interviews or comments on Reddit, if I'm not mistaken. And the Thalmor, the Thalmor want to return to the Dawn era. And they want it to stay the Dawn. They don't want a Merethic. They don't want the first, second, third, fourth era. They don't want any of that. They don't want convention to happen. They just want to be in the Dawn era, and they want to stay there. Because as elves, they are the direct descendants of the old Elnafey, who spent a little bit of time in the Dawn. And so they believe the Dawn to be this untime of just infinite energy and light and beauty and they live forever and they're infinite in everything and whatever.
They basically view mortality as a curse.
Yeah. which is
Well,
where we get
Well,
to.
I don't think they have that on. It's a different wording. I think that they would use. You got to say it in High Elf Ayleid language,
Sure.
because that would be like calling it a curse would be like giving it a Breton translation to
See,
Elven.
Yeah,
Well,
true.
and that's
Hang on. I would also like to point out that the Yokudans are the only race of men that have an elven view of the world, viewing
Yes.
things as
yes,
being
yes.
a trap or a curse or a prison. So those are actually perfectly acceptable words.
Well, and this is where we get into the dichotomy of man and mer, or more specifically, Altmer and Nord. Because I think we talked about this last time. If you think of the ideology of the different races on a spectrum, you've got the Altmer at one end and the Nords on the other. The Altmer would kind of see existence as a curse. They see, oh, well, we're stuck in this mortal form and we have to experience death and we have to, we have to work and sweat. And no, we want to be up there in the timeless everythingness. And we want to be infinite and forever. That's what we want to be.
That is pretty understandable.
And yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, isn't that also going back to the whole Anu is slowly dying or whatever, and that's why the whole Anu Padme dynamic is related to the ego, the id, and the superego, or something like that.
I think that is a justification for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole, I want to just go to the light as a way of, I don't know, I guess maybe moving on.
Yeah. I mean, it could be, and I mean, I don't know if you did you read the lore essay that Mac McGee and I wrote, the transubstantiation of Anu? Felix, did you read that?
I don't think I have yet.
So
That's a good one.
So it's a lore essay about basically we're exploring the idea that the dreamer could be a transgendered woman, and through the Arbus, she is learning to accept herself. But the reason that we're in the dream in the first place is that she attempted suicide, because the suicide rate of transgendered people, between the ages of like 17 and 22 is like 43%. Like, it's ridiculously high. And so if Anu is slowly dying, we're in this comatose state because, maybe they're on life support in the hospital somewhere. I mean, it's I thought it was a really interesting kind of lens to view the Arbus from. But anyways, back to what we're talking about. So the elves have that one view, and then the Nords see it completely different. They see the dawn as this cold, desolate, timeless place, and if there's no time, then nothing can be. How can we smell the roses and taste the sweet rolls and fall in love? How can we do these things? How can we cherish the life that we have if there is no death?
Sorry, I just got to interject real quickly.
Yeah.
Heretical thought, but I really like it. Atmora and Almeris are the exact same continent, just described from different perspectives.
See, I used to argue the exact same thing.
I agree with that,
and I super fucking like that, and always have. But remember Todd?
Yeah.
Howard.
No, Damrath.
Damrath, yeah. He used to give me so much shit for that, and it lost favor. But then Todd and I are no longer on speaking terms, so. Fuck you. Yeah, I like this idea better. So, yeah, no, that's something I've always thought. Atmora and Aldmeris are the same thing viewed from different perspectives. So, wheeling back to the Thalmor, right? They want to get back to their idea of the dawn. And the one thing that keeps them from that is mankind. Mankind is supported by Talos, who is Lorkhan. If Lorkhan does not happen, mankind cannot happen in any Kalpa, meaning that the elves can always be in the dawn, right? So they pin everything on Lorkhan, on Talos, on men. And so by saying, okay, We're going to outlaw worship on Talos. Talos will be forgotten. Talos will disintegrate. Maybe the same will happen to Lorcan. Men won't happen next Kalpa. We get to stay in the Dawn forever. That's kind of the idea that they had. They no longer need to exist in this trap that is Mundus.
Those Thalmor bastards.
Is it though? Because something that I pointed out in an article I wrote almost a year ago was in I think the Skyrim Civil War and why it doesn't matter.
I love that.
I pointed out that the only reason we like the Nords so much is because we associate with them. They appear human, so we tend to take their side. Whereas
the elves take their side with the view of Lorcan. So.
Whereas the elves are non-human, and they're alien, and they're other, and they think weird. They're not us.
I like Dunmer. They're a little more.
Oh, Dunmer are mood AF.
Yeah.
Hello, Red Guards, perfect compromise, elven beliefs with curved swords and black people.
Well, beliefs are the problem I have. Their beliefs are wrong, in my view. In my view.
So anyway, can we kill a god by outlawing his worship and by basically stemming the flow of mythopoeia that keeps him afloat?
Well, I would say if the dreamer forgets it, like you said, then it's gone.
Yeah. If the dreamer forgets, I mean, what does that mean? Because I mean, if we go back to kind of my model of the Godhead and thinking about everything in terms of psychology, I mean, when you forget a thing, say you had an idea last night and as you were falling asleep and you're like, oh no, I'll remember it tomorrow. And then you wake up and you're like, what was the idea? Fuck, I can't remember. What happened to that idea? Did it die?
Drowned lamp.
Is the drowned lamps? Yeah. Is there a dead body of that idea floating around somewhere in your head? Or did you just reabsorb the whatever information that was into your own psyche? It's in there somewhere, but
yeah, that's true. Or it could have morphed into something else.
Yeah. Which I mean, that kind of that's kind of how I describe zero sum too. If you attempt to attain Kim and you zero sum instead, it's not that you're dead per se. You didn't suffer a death. You didn't bleed out and the light flash before your eyes or whatever. It's just that you were reabsorbed by the dreamer, who's you anyway.
Yeah.
So basically, it's coming to realize that you are just a projection or a simulation.
Partially, I go pretty in depth with Kim, and I've gone over this a few times in other lore chats.
I'd say Kim is kind of like Neo, finding out he's in the Matrix, but he doesn't just like turn into a bunch of numbers. He maintains himself and then figures out how to work the world, kind of.
A bit. I mean, the way I've always thought about Kim is that you realize, okay, I'm in a dream. This is all a dream. None of this is real, which means I'm not real. But I exist within a dream, which means there is a dreamer. And if there's a dreamer, that means all of this is part of that dreamer. The dreamer exists, therefore so do I. That's the logic that happens there. And as it's been said before, it's holding a gun to the dreamer's head and saying, if I don't exist, neither do you, motherfucker. Well, if I don't exist, then you don't exist because I am you. At least in some small part. That's what that means. So you realize I am the dreamer. And there's a term I like to throw around. It's synecdoche, which is a poetic term, which I think is very appropriate for Vivek, right? And it's a figurative language where you take a small part of something to stand in for the whole. So you might call, oh yes, that gray beard over there. That just means old man with a gray beard. We're not talking about just his beard. We're talking about the whole guy. I will kill you you will die by my hand. It's not just my hand that's doing it. The hand isn't working independently. It's me. I am doing it, and I kill you with my hand. The hand stands in for the whole. So that's how synecdoche works, at least in poetry and in literature. So to take that idea, apply that to the dream. I am the dreamer. I am a small part of the dreamer. Therefore, I am the dreamer. I am the hand that kills. Right?
Makes sense to me.
That's how, last year or so, that's kind of my understanding how that's developed. And that's, I throw that around on Tesla a lot. But I mean, does anyone have anything else to add on killing gods or CHIM or anything?
I already shouted my answer about drowned lamp.
Yeah, drowned lamp.
My view of the dream has always been just because it's a dream dreamed by a person doesn't mean it's not real.
Exactly. Yeah, and and this frustrates me a lot because I see a lot of people go, oh, well, if it's a dream, then none of it matters. None of my choices matter. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. It matters because we decide it matters. Do you have a favorite color, a favorite food? Why do those things matter to you? It's because you choose they do. You have made the choice. You get involved in a TV show or a book or a play or music because you choose to. You like it and you choose to partake in it. And the same thing happens here. I mean, why does the fact that it's a dream cheapen the fiction? It's already fiction. It's already not real. The only difference is that now the fiction is aware that it's not real. Why does that change the subject matter?
And it's not necessarily like a human or an elf dreaming. It could just be like a god dreaming anyway. So who knows,
Yeah. It's a frustrating thing I see a lot, and I can't help but say something about it. Like, it's so nihilistic and so it's so negative, right?
Yeah.
And it blows my mind how people could land on that particular square on the board here.
Well, it's the same as people who are like, oh, you don't believe in heaven? Well, life sucks. They're like, well, not really.
Speaking as an atheist, I fully understand that. And that's when I bring in kind of how I described the Nord idea of reality, of Mundus, right? We have time to live and die and feel things, and the short time we have makes it all worth it. It makes it precious, and every day is a gift, and
that's why I'm on the Nord side of things.
Sure,
on the man side.
Yeah. And I mean, personally, I like
the women's side.
I like to take an objective stance when it comes to the Elder Scrolls. I don't really take sides. I have favorites, sure, but I'm not going to go, oh well, the elves are evil, because like I get it, right?
Yeah, I get it too.
It expands my understanding and appreciation of the entire the entire setting for me to look at everything objectively. Okay, I understand your viewpoint.
No, man.
Your point. Yeah. Stormcloaks for life.
No, dude, Stormcloaks are all freedom fighters. Ulfric's actually like super smart, and all elves are Nazis. And if you disagree, you're clearly a fucking idiot. I am very smart. I have 3 gold on Reddit, so fuck you.
Yeah, you gotta take sides sometimes.
But then you go the other way.
Just for fun.
Oh, well, Ulfric is a white nationalist, a Nord nationalist, and you're racist if you support him.
I mean, he does have a few red flags.
Oh, no, he does. But
at the same time, he has some valid points.
Sure, yeah. And I mean, that's the whole thing with the Elder Scrolls, is it's all shades of gray. We call it the gray maybe for a fucking reason.
That's so true.
And so, I mean, there is no good, there is no evil. There's only, I mean, even in real life, I mean, think of like Abraham Lincoln, for example. They call him the Great Emancipator. He only did that because he wanted to keep the Union together. He didn't give a shit about slavery. He didn't care.
Yeah.
And I know this because I've studied the Civil War extensively. Like I understand what the motivations behind both the Union and the Confederacy were, and you know, I've read a lot of accounts and I've pieced things together, and I mean that's you know, 4-year college for you. But anyway, back to the lore. Yeah, I mean, Civil War is stupid.
Yeah, I mean, both of the factions. I mean, you got like the Empire, which are like literal imperialists, versus like a bunch of guys who keep the Dark Elves in a ghetto. There's no good guy.
Yeah, no,
At least he
that was
keeps them.
pretty much how I always played through Skyrim. It was like that one scene from Family Guy where it's the Gyllenhaals, Maggie and Jake. They're saying, "No, I'm worse. No, I'm worse," and I'm the dad saying, "You're both just terrible." That's basically my view.
Yeah,
It's like Stormcloaks, you're shit. Rayloff, I like you, Rayloff, but your compatriots means I'm not fucking joining you. And Hadbar, you're a good guy, but you're also a fucking bootlicker, so no. Like, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, you suck, you're cool, fuck you. That's basically.
yeah. It's like the end scene of Waiting. You ever see that? You just you know, you just lay it on fucking Ryan Reynolds, and he's like, "Whoa," and then you're like, "No, you're cool, fuck you." And here's like the goat that I do with my balls, and that's, you know, if you've ever seen that movie, I recommend it. It's pretty great.
It's a good one.
Especially if you've ever worked in the food service industry. It's
I
yeah.
have. Holy shit.
Oh, I got a lore question.
After stream, I can tell you guys what's arguably one of the greatest and most horrifying server industry stories ever.
Yeah, man. Okay, Johnny, what do you got?
Can you describe the Memosphere? I don't know if I said that right.
The Memospore?
Yeah, Memospore. I overheard and read about it the other day, but I couldn't absorb any of it into my head. Wondering if you know anything about it.
So, a Memospore. Actually, Felix, you want to take this one?
Not really, because my explanation, like, okay, I'll give my version of explanation, and then Andrew can either corroborate or change aspects of it. Basically, a Memospore is like a parceled bubble of information or communication sent through the dream sleeve to other people who are connected to the dream sleeve. Sorry?
An email.
Okay, whatever. It's a fucking email. I prefer thought bubble because, you know, spores, the Dunmer fungus. So I imagine like this fungal spore.
Thought bubble also has comic book connotations, which is fun. I like that.
I mean, Jubal did kill Numidium with an empty comic speech balloon, so yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I remember that now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Andrew, did I more or less get that correct?
Pretty much. So the dream sleeve, which has a couple different functions. We see it in Battlespire. It's used as like an internet. And so, I mean, how that works, I mean, it ain't a series of tubes, I'll tell you that much. So the idea is that, to my understanding, and I could be wrong on some aspects, basically you, through some manipulation of your thoughts or something, you can encode packets of information. So like an email, you encode this and you send it off into the dream sleeve, and if the recipient knows the proper thought sequence to access that Memospore, say, okay, I gotta think of grandma's handbasket, then a piece of salmon, then I gotta think of Barad-dûr, then I gotta think of this and that and the other thing, and boom, okay, there's my Memospore. Kind of like that. So you kind of snatch it out of the dream sleeve. Whether you need the terminal for that, I don't really know, but it basically allows people in different times to communicate. So you can communicate with the future can communicate with the past. So you've got people like Diveth Fear, Hasfa Antibolus, Chancellor Akato. You've got all these people who know how to use Memospores. As referenced by the Numantia Intercept, which is an out-of-game text. I think it was a Bethsoft forums role play, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe it was.
Yeah, and so it was a conversation, and that's actually where we get the first tower lore. Towers weren't really a thing prior to the Numantia Intercept, and then they were included in Skyrim and everything. And that's.
Have you ever seen the Lake House with Keanu Reeves?
I have not, but I probably should because I know it's relevant.
Yep, because there's a mailbox and like Keanu Reeves and one actress, I forget who she is, but they share.
Sandra Bullock.
Yep, I think so. They both live at a lake house at different years. Yeah, they use it. They use the same mailbox at the same lake house years apart, and then they like keep putting in letters, and then like one of them gets it, and I forget how it works, but they talk across time.
I know. My wife's ex-husband. He didn't understand the movie.
I barely did either.
So that like gives me reason to go and watch it and be like, that was easy.
Yeah. It is a good movie, even though it's cheesy.
Yeah, my wife's ex-husband, for the record, is actually a pretty okay guy. Kind of an idiot, but you know, good dude overall. So there's that.
So it's like telepathic though. Like you have to do it.
Yeah,
anything?
Yeah. It's unclear if you need the terminal to make it work, or if you can just be like, you know, jacking it in your bunk, and then you know, oh yeah, let me check the Memospore. I think of things, and then okay, nope, nothing in my inbox. Okay, go back to, you know.
Yeah.
By the way, why is Hasfan and Tablet so goddamn important?
Dude's fucking Indiana Jones. That's why.
Okay, but no, because we saw the dead body of Indiana Jones in a cave somewhere in Morrowind.
His name was Indy. That's totally different guy. Yeah, no. So Johnny asked who. Hasfa Antibolus is a character you meet in Morrowind. He is.
He gives you your first real proper like miscellaneous quest.
Yeah,
an infamous fucking quest.
Yeah. So
the Dwemer puzzle box.
He is a he's like a sparring coach or something for the Fighters Guild in Balmora.
Oh, I know that guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's your very first quest in the main. In the main quest, where you got to go and talk to Hasfat Antibolus, and you bring him a copy of like Morrowind and its history. I got the hiccups. When was the last time you got drunk and had hiccups? I'm not drunk, but I got hiccups. Wow.
It's been a while.
Yeah. He sends you off to go and find the Dwemer puzzle box, and you know, the rest is history. I know. Yeah. I mean, I don't remember ever having difficulty getting the puzzle box myself, but I had friends who were like, "Where is it?"
Yeah,
and that's piss easy, kid. Get over it. So yeah, Hasfa Antibolus, and who was I was talking to? It was like Cody Glenn Hagee, I think. He talked about wanting to write like an Indiana Jones kind of thing, like the Adventures of Hasfa Antibolus. And I was like, dude, I will so totally co-write this with you. And then it never happened. So I may just take up the reins and do it myself.
Or he'll just send off an adventurer to get all his runes for him.
By the time we meet him in Morrowind, I mean, he may be, you know, kind of the wizened professor who, you know, has done some shit. You know, I don't know. So I mean,
that's why he doesn't move anywhere. All those people, they're done. They're settled down wherever they are.
Now, guys, hang on. Picture this, right? Hasfat Antibolus goes around it's his adventures in Morrowind, punching the faces of any kimono tongue he finds.
Yeah, dude.
It's like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah.
That
You
sounds
could get
awesome.
You could get Russell Crowe to be the dude, floating around the world.
So I don't know if that answers your question about Memospores. I hope so.
I think so. That's a good answer.
Okay.
Good telepathic internet,
Yeah.
basically, across time and space.
So moving on. Colby, you had a question, I think, right? That we were going to come back to. It may have been what are going to, or was that Johnny who asked what are going to be the events of Test 6? That was one. But Colby, I know you had a question.
I didn't have a question.
How could gods create the world in the first place without worship?
Oh yeah, that. Yeah.
And then
I did ask that
afterwards.
Yeah, and then we'll talk about Test 6 for a second. So
no, I mean on his question, how can they exist after? Or I don't know. You know what I'm talking about.
So
he said it well.
Right. So basically, again, with Elder Scrolls, you have to keep in mind it's all the dream of some giant dead guy, and everything in there is subgradient of some kind of mental thing, ego and super ego. And the creation of the world is the result of the interplay between Anu and Padme, or their earlier subgradients, which is, I guess you could probably say, Anu and I think it's. Oh wait, no, Sithis comes after Padme. So yeah, it's Anu and Padme who are the very first, and their interplay is what creates the Arbus, which locates Nirn and Mundus in the realm and the entirety and breadth of existence. And the whole point is that everything is a subgradient, and you have beyond those the two definitions, which are our ancestors, the Aedra, and not our ancestors, who are the Daedra, basically. Or sorry, no, that's Diatada. My bad, Diatada.
Yeah.
But for example, Trinimac, before he became Malakath, was this kind of ancestor spirit who was worshipped and was very, very powerful. And so it's not mentioned that, he was a god and we got something. No, he was just, this powerful spirit that came to be. And the Yokunin myth explains this very well, which is after the very first cycle, when Satak bit his own heart, and then he shed his skin to begin the world anew. And then the first spirits who had saw that and survived that realized what their place in this world was, and then started siring their own children, who eventually became mortal descendants, who we now know as humans, at least according to the Yokunis, right? So it's not so much that they need worship to exist. They need to have worship to have power. That's kind of the distinction I would make personally. And so but I mean, if they don't have power, they're very minor gods, right? Whereas if they have a lot of worship, they're very powerful. This also brings us to lunar currency, which is the trading of souls.
Hold on, Felix. Before we get into lunar currency, what's that you're trying to say, Kolba?
You said that worship gives them power, right? But you need power to actually make a mortal world. That I presume that takes a bit of effort.
Because the mortal world was created because of the interplay between Anu and Padme, who are subgradients of the Dreamer.
I would imagine to kind of to try and reconcile these two, because they seem kind of contradictory. To reconcile them, I mean, if we think about the power as we've got a bowl and it's a leaky bowl, right? You start with it full, but then as time goes on, the power leaks out, right? And so you need someone to be refilling that bowl constantly, or the power is going to drain out, and then you got nothing. So they started with it full, and that's what allowed them to help create Mundus and lend their gift limbs and everything else.
That is a very good metaphor.
I mean, I try. So Felix, continue.
No, it was basically done.
Well,
It just gets us to lunar currency, which is the trading of souls between gods to determine kind of equitable shares of power, if I recall correctly.
See, I've always considered lunar currency to be it's basically animus, right? It's the life energy, which makes the Daedric princes who tend to traffic in animus, that makes them energy moguls. That's literally it, because they can use this energy to increase their own weight in the dream, as it were.
Oh,
And
so what? Marin's Dagon's just an oil baron, and that's why his plane of oblivion is the hellscape it is.
Yeah, dude. So you got the first two that I think of that really traffic in souls are Molag Bal and Clavicus Vile. And so they're trying to hoard their power for maybe to basically increase their market value in the dream, as it were. Like, I mean, if we think of it like a stock exchange kind of thing, the more of something there is, I mean, take Microsoft, for example. How many people own shares in Microsoft? I own a share in Microsoft, and it's thousands of people can buy shares in Microsoft, and they're $120 a pop or something, thousands of people can have these. But how many shares total do you think there are? That's a lot. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of dosh coming in. And so, I mean, it just means, is that the weight they have in the Arbus overall? Is that a measure of their powers? That a measure of what they can do? I don't really know. For some reason or another, they try to go after this. And so, maybe they use the energy to, influence the dream as a whole. I don't really know. I mean, it kind of falls apart after that, but that's what I've got as far as lunar currency goes.
Going kind of on that, do you think Aedra or Daedric could remove the power of another one? Like, I know Boethia eats Trinimac and he becomes Malakath, right? But he doesn't get destroyed.
But basically, change is the most powerful force in the universe.
Yeah.
So yeah, Boethia ate Trinimac. Trinimac ripped out Lorcan's heart with more than hands.
That Aedra turns Jigalak into Sheogorath.
Yep.
Which I have some words about Sheogorath and Jigalak.
Zip.
We'll get to that later.
Zip. We also have Meridia, who can bless certain alien groups. We have Azura, who literally changed the Khajiit into Khajiit.
Well, her whole sphere is periods of change. So
yeah, I know.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying that change is the greatest force in the Elder Scrolls universe. It takes power away from gods. It changes the order of how the world works.
Which at the same time also makes stasis the most powerful. Because if you think about it, constant change, and I think this is something we talked about last time, constant change is a sort of stasis on its own. If it's constantly changing, then the state of that constant changing is a stasis. And
even the races don't totally ever die out. Like the Dwemer, they're just somewhere else as something else.
Yeah,
the Chimmer became the Dunmer, etc.
Yeah, it's almost like this weird kind of Mandela sort of a duality where you can constantly go in and those kind of trippy gifs you see where it's like you're constantly in and it's more detail and it's like the same thing over and over again, same kind of thing. but duality. So
I
And,
just had
the
an
snow
idea.
elves.
what's that called, Bo?
So okay, you were talking about like Anu and Padme.
Mhm.
So I was thinking about like the interplay as basically like Hegelian dialectics, like thesis, antithesis, and like Montes. No, the Orbis. No, the Montes is like the synthesis.
That's interesting. That's a new one for me. Can you explain a little more about that? I mean, break it down to a.
I just like it. Just a thought that appeared to my head.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But how do you like explain this in simple terms? I have to fucking know.
Well, I guess first start with the terminology. I mean, what are the phrases? Because I'm kind of getting the gist of what you're going for here, but I'm not terribly familiar with the nomenclature. So the phrases that you're using aren't terribly familiar to me. So I'd love if you could explain those a little more and how that relates to the change in stasis and Anu and Padme and all that.
Okay, basically like think it in terms of like ideology.
Mm-hmm.
So you got like different points of view, basically, and people arguing together.
Sure.
Eventually they come to a conclusion, and that is the synthesis, basically. An argument, a counter argument, and an agreement.
Gotcha. Okay. Being the gray maybe, a compromise.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh. Yeah, I like that.
I know what you mean. Compromise.
Yeah, which is interesting because the basis of the dream is conflict. That's everything, right? Reach heaven by violence. Don't reach heaven by love. Reach heaven by violence. That's what we do. Constant warfare and even Anu and Padme, they fought.
I mean, politics is basically just institutional violence.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what it is.
I mean, there was a U.S. Governor or senator one time who beat the shit out of another governor or senator with a cane.
Are you talking about the attack on Charles Sumner?
Yeah, Charles Sumner. Yeah, that's the guy. Yeah, good shit.
I know a guy who thinks all politicians should just fight each other to clear up country politics.
I mean, I think in some of the older statutes of the United States, I think fist fights are a valid form of debate.
That's how Ulfric won.
Yeah.
That's how Plato argued,
shouting.
actually.
Yeah. Well, what is they said? You used a forbidden art to kill your high king or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, I forget the actual quote. So let's see. We're about an hour in. What else do you want to talk about? Caldwell, you're new to us this time. So is there anything in particular that you're curious about? Something that comes to mind that?
Nothing at the moment, but like you were going to like talk about Elder Scrolls 6 and like what happens to Skyrim and all that.
Yeah. So
I mean, there's been a theory floating around, or more like a hypothesis, that basically like the Falmer would like rise up to the surface and start like raiding more frequently, maybe like establishing a full-scale invasion.
Nah, not gonna happen.
Yeah, they're too stupid. They don't have a civilization at all.
Well, I mean, they do. It's just very simplistic and tribalistic. So, Elder Scrolls 6. We do know that it's going to take place in Hammerfell. I'm not going to say where the information comes from, but I do know personally that it's going to be Hammerfell. It's going to be. And Redfall is
strictly
not
Hammerfell or the Iliac Bay region.
I'm told Hammerfell.
Or both.
I mean, by being in Hammerfell, it would be the Iliac Bay region by default. But I don't think it's
half
going
of the Iliac, baby.
yeah, I don't think it's going to be any other. It's not going to be High Rock. It's not going to be Orsinium. We're not going to get any of that. It's all. We're talking all Red Guard, baby. So, as is typical with
I really hope they bring me on as a consultant. It's like, hey, I have some ideas.
hey man, just I could ping some people.
Sure, please do.
I mean,
Like, I'm serious.
you probably know them as well as I do.
Still, do it. If you already have the information, you have like a toe in the door.
I don't know. I could always bug Lehman Tuttle and see if he could put a good word. But
yeah, man, do it.
He gave me a great interview. I'm working on one.
I read that; it was good.
Yeah, I'm working on one with Lawrence Schick right now.
Nice.
Sent him questions. I'm just waiting for him to actually sit down and answer them. Which, I mean, he's a busy guy, so I get it. It's gonna be Hammerfell. Redfall is not the title. It will not be called Redfall. I know that Bethesda put in a trademark for Redfall, but Redfall is not the title of the Elder Scrolls game. Usually, copyright and trademarking happens about a year in advance, and we're not going to see Elder Scrolls 6 until at least 2024 at the earliest. It's going to be a bit, yeah. We also know this. Same source, not going to say who. And so I would imagine, given the kind of motion had, Morrowind was focused on the Dunmer culture and their cultural hero. And we've got the Nerevarine. Yeah. Then we've got
and the gods who hate him.
Yeah. Then we've got
the Dunmer love.
Then we've got Oblivion with the cultural hero Pelennor. And also kind of Talos. And the entire Septim Dynasty for that matter. Then we've got Skyrim, and we've got Izmir, and Dragonborn, and the Thuum, and all that.
So are we gonna get Hunding?
I think we're gonna get the Hunding. I think we're gonna get Hunding. We're gonna get Anse. That's what we're gonna get.
Maybe not Anse, but sword singing.
At least sword singing, yeah. Which I mean, I would argue makes one Anse
awesome.
by default. Because I mean the whole point of, I mean is that the difference of being knowing martial arts and being a Buddhist monk. I mean, is that
it's more like the statement how all sword singers are Anse, but not all. Sorry, all Anse are sword singers, not all sword singers are Anse.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so it's a matter of category. Okay.
Because the Anse are pretty much confirmed to be extinct, but more or less by the time they get to Hammerfell.
Yeah. So that also tells me we're gonna deal with some Hunding stuff too. Because cultural hero, that's what we've got. I mean, that's kind of a recurring theme we've got, at least reaching back to Morrowind. So we got 3 games, this sort of pattern. So Hunding and sword singing. That's what's that?
Plus, as I pointed out to people years ago when I made a post, I think it was on Tesla or something. It was like on like a temporary account, or maybe it was like in the Elder Scrolls 4 group on Facebook.
You used to have a different account, didn't you?
I'm not sure. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't.
The Hanukkah Masashi thing is relatively new to me.
Yeah, that is. That came out of Area. Anyway, one of the posts I remember making somewhere in the community back in the day was that Elder Scrolls 6 should be set in Hammerfell for a variety of reasons. One very important one was that it would serve as a great continuation of the Skyrim storyline and how it relates to the Thalmor, the Aldmeri Dominion, the end of the Empire, all that.
No.
Yeah, they made a lot of references to the Red Guards fighting back in Skyrim.
Yeah, which I mean, something I say all the time the Civil War will have little to no impact
Yep.
on Test 6 because the Skyrim Civil War was mostly filler. It was side quests.
Yeah, it was so
You know?
boring.
I mean,
Also because Bethesda doesn't like negating people's choices.
Mhm.
They try and compensate for it. So you think of, okay, so what are the things that absolutely do happen in the Civil War questline that you know will carry over somehow? So at the end of it, the only person who's left alive is Elisif the Fair.
Yeah.
So we know Whiterun got sacked. They
Mhm.
won't say who won. They'll just say, yeah, the battle after the inconclusive Battle of Whiterun or something.
Yeah.
And they'll have Tullius and Ulfric fight for a while, and then they'll both die and be seen as heroes by the respective sides. And Jarl Elisif will just be the High Queen, just sort of, I didn't have to do anything, and I became High Queen. Okay, cool.
Oh yeah, that's totally what's going to happen with the Civil War. Absolutely. I mean,
Because they're not going to say one way or the other unless they try and do a Dragon Break where it says, yeah, and Skyrim shattered. Like, okay.
I
yeah,
can see that too.
yeah. So I mean, other than that, I don't have a whole lot of other information. So
Yeah, if they straight up just copy a lot of just super generically stylized Middle Eastern influences like they've done with ESO, I'm going to be so fucking pissed.
yeah, I mean, I feel like they can do more.
Yeah, which is why, again, I would love to be even just a minor voice on the creative team, just pointing out, like, yeah, hey, here's some great desert ideas and from these various other countries, some of which I've spent extensive fucking time in to give you actual, inspirations for script and style and what to do. Just gonna.
Well, the thing that I think works best when creating cultures is taking real world cultures and then diluting it with something completely fucking different.
Yeah, I mean, like the Dunmer are culturally similar to the Chinese, but their aesthetic and culture is just very different.
Yeah, I mean, let's put the culture of Saudi Arabia and let's stick them in the Antarctic. See what happens. It's basically a desert culture, but in an ice desert. That changes everything. No longer is sand the big motif; it's snow. I guess that basically makes them Inuit, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, yes and no. I mean,
the Inuits don't have like a totalitarian society.
Yeah,
they're more like tribal.
Yeah.
Well, okay, no, it's okay. As a Canadian who has extensive relations with people who have either lived up north or know the Inuit, it's a fairly conservative society in the sense that there are clear roles within the society, but it's also very understanding and kind and tolerant in a lot of ways. So Inuit conflict resolution is very different. Children at different ages are given affection, but in different ways, and it's meant to be used for the different ages because they know that they're young, they're delicate. There have been conflicts in the past, but generally speaking, you can't really have war because it's just too hard and too massive, and everyone's already just struggling to make ends meet, which does create a conservative society, but it also creates a pragmatic society. So yeah, hey, husband's off trying to teach the young boy how to fish, but yeah, mom's got to be home making them the nice fur skin, so she needs to know how to chop up a seal. So elders, be they male or female, are greatly admired and respected in the community. And there is a heavy emphasis on community. So these little hamlets of maybe 5 to 10 families will be living and working and cooperating together and try and work out conflict and conflict resolution peacefully, right? So in that sense, it is very different from the very patriarchal Saudi society, even though both societies could be broadly styled as conservative societies.
Yeah, which I mean, when you think of real world cultures merging with other cultures, I mean, you got to be really careful when you're creating a separate culture, right? I mean, you can add Japanese to almost anything and make it unique, but take Japanese and Native American, for example, and you get the cultures that exist today on Hokkaido, the northernmost island of the Japanese archipelago. And you know, if you look up Hokkaido, I mean, it's practically Alaskan Japanese. Like it's crazy and it's fucking sweet looking. But I mean, you can take two cultures, or you can take three cultures, or even more, and you can just kind of weave in little bits and pieces and kind of make them mesh. So let's say, you know, we take Japanese culture, we're going to take Mongolian culture, and we're going to take why not Spanish culture? Let's put those three together and see what comes out. Let's take you know, like the sport of bullfighting or something similar to that, and then let's do you know, the familial structure of Japanese society, and then a dependency on horses in Mongolian society, and let's mush that together with some aesthetics sprinkled in, and hey, we've got, you know, a constructed culture right there. And so with the Red Guards, I mean, making it just Middle Eastern, yes, is very lazy. And so I'm sure there's something they could do. They've got the money, they've got the people.
Yeah.
They could do something with it. And as much as I love ESO's creative team nowadays, I mean, in 2014, 2015, it was rough. But yeah, I mean, they could. I don't know. Who knows what they can do or what they will do.
I mean, Bethesda has a lot of like pre-established lore with like the game Elder Scrolls Adventures Red Guard.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I imagine that they'll probably be relying on a lot of that for Test 6, given that it is in Hammerfell.
Point them to the land of song.
Yeah, like I wanna see more slowed stuff. I want to be able to visit Stros Mackay again. I
have a feeling that the islands will be the DLC. So like Stros Mackay will be a DLC. It'll also be a DLC, and like Herne, Caspar and the Chain might be another DLC.
That'd be cool. See what I'd like to see? I want to get like an actual. So remember in Assassin's Creed Black Flag? You ever play that?
No, I have not played it, but I know the game.
Fucking sick, and they have a badass like ship piloting system where you've got your fucking ship and you're sailing it, and it's like a mini game on its own. And the system, how they did that was awesome. It was so great. I'd like to see something like that, but in the Elder Scrolls.
Well, cannons are cannons, so
yeah, yes, they are. Absolutely. Oh, I think don't have time for me to take my no heartburn pill.
Also, we've been at this for like an hour and a half. Maybe it's time to wrap it up.
Maybe the very first casual lore chat was 3 hours long. I know Jesus. I had to go through and watch the whole thing and then annotate what topics were discussed and put them in the description. So, yeah. But no, I agree. So unless anyone has anything else they want to talk about, I mean, we can probably extend it a half an hour to get things, I don't know, just to do justice to a topic. But if we don't have anything, anyone?
No questions in chat or anything like that?
Oh, I haven't been checking.
God damn it, Andrew.
Nothing. Nothing.
Well, you're safe this time, man.
Fuck all. Zilch.
I'm trying to think, but I can't think.
Goose egg. All right. Well, I think I'll call that, and then I can finish my beer, go to bed, read some more Stormlight Archives. Blood for the Vengeance Pact. Yeah. So we may not be able to do another one of these on Hangouts. I'm curious to see if maybe Google will put something else out where we can group up like this, and have it connect to YouTube. That'd be great, because I don't know how to YouTube, and so I just use the live events button, and it's really easy and
Twitch
convenient.
sounds good. Felix sounds like he's got a good idea.
Yeah, Felix. If you find out anything on that front, do let me know, because it would be.
I will endeavor to find
fabulous.
out, because I remember a streamer I follow did this. It was her and 3 other e-girls talking about what it means to be an e-girl.
Yeah, well, and I mean, UASP does it. They do streams and they interview people, and they've got multiple people on at the same time. So
Yeah, there's got to be a way.
I don't know. Yeah, I think that's it for this evening. So I hope you enjoyed that internet. That was all for you. So everybody wave.
Everything I do it for you.
See you next time.
Anybody else? When I think about you, I touch myself.